This is a weekly STEP meeting with a different speaker each week, speaking on the STEP of the week for approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and then open for discussion or questions till 7 p.m. So that brings us to our speaker on December 14th, 2020 in Doylestown, PA at the Monday night, 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and STEP Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Rick D., and he's sharing his experience on STEP 8 and 9. Help me welcome him.
What's up, guys? My name's Rick. I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here. It's good to be at a live meeting. And my sobriety date is November 29th of 2005. And I do have a home group. My home group is the Stepping Stones. It's an inner city clubhouse in Northeast Philadelphia. And it's not the worst section of Philadelphia, but it's a hit and bottom spot for sure. It's a neighborhood I grew up in. It's where I drank in and did a lot of damage. And it's pretty cool that I can get sober there too. And the reason why I give my sobriety date, I don't know why I give my sobriety date. It's just something to lead into. I don't know. Well, my first meeting of AA was in 1999, and my sobriety date's 2005. And that's 6 years of bouncing in and out of the fellowship, bouncing in and out of meetings. I just didn't know what to do when I got here. But every time I would come to, where I would ask for help, and then I would come to in a place, the 12 steps were always hanging on the wall. I ask for help, I come to, and there's the 12 steps, but I can't connect the dots because I just don't know. I just don't know what kind of help that I need in order to stay sober, one day at a time, in a row, forever. I know they say it's a one day at a time program. There's nothing that doesn't happen one day at a time. So that goes without saying. But what this book offers, and what this 12 steps and what Alcoholics Anonymous offers us, is permanent sobriety. I had that one day at a time, shoot for midnight, 4 meetings a day sobriety, and I couldn't pull it off. It wasn't by a lack of trying. And there's this thing that I suffer from, that how do you need help and not look like you need it? That's like an art form that I perfected. When I would come into rooms and somebody asked me how I'm doing, you can paint that face and I'm doing okay. And on the inside, I'm not. I just got this ball of anxiety, and it's just driving me. It's like I was in work today, and we were connecting iron, and it's like that ratchet. Just ratchet. It was just every day away from a drink. It was just getting tighter and tighter in here until I just had a drink to get relief from that sober condition. And I would look at the steps, and I would never. I'm all inventory. Admitting I'm powerless. Like there's no way that I'm not going to be able to drink again. And if you're like me, you suffer from some delusions. The first delusion is when it gets bad enough, I'm going to stop. That delusion kept me from ever coming in here. The second delusion I suffer from is that somehow, someday, I'm going to control and enjoy my drinking. That delusion there kept me from ever asking about this stuff. The third delusion I suffer from, and many of us suffer from, is that after a certain period of time, I'm not alcoholic no more. I'm like other people now. I'm sober 10 years. That delusion there moves more people out of Alcoholics Anonymous than the other delusion. The fourth delusion I suffer from is that if I just wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world, I'm going to be okay. Like if I get all my ducks in a row, if I go back to school, get a good job, you buy a house, you meet a girl, you get married, you have kids, that goal, I just wasn't capable of doing that. I watch people in here do it. I see 2 people come in, they're newly sober, they meet, they date, they get married, they have babies, they get a house, they get jobs, and next thing you know, that's not my experience. I suffer sober. And the fifth delusion I suffer from is I'm not hurting anybody else. And if you have children, if you have parents, if you have family, sit down with somebody that can show you how you hurt them. Because I'm 15 years sober, so Some of my friends had kids that were 4, 5, 10 years old, and now they're in active alcoholism and drug addiction. And you see them in a meeting, and you ask them, yo, how's Junior doing, man? You know, how's any word from him? It's all good. God's got it. You know, he has to feel his own pain. They give you the correct AA spiritual answer. But if you look close in the eyes, no matter how spiritual that person is, you can see the pain behind their eyes. And they have a program. My parents didn't. You know, and in that fourth step, I was only a couple of days sober when I wrote that fourth step. I know that goes against AA rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. But my sponsor knew the big book. He knew I needed to have an experience. I wrote a fourth step very early on in this sobriety, because there's been many other sobrieties. Thank God I didn't get my sobriety dates tattooed on me. It would just be one big green blob. And in that fourth step, I internalized what kind of human being I was. And it was never my intention to be that kind of human being. And it wasn't that I wrote a list of all the bad things I've done, because that's not what the four steps about. Just my resentments. How my two biggest resentments were my parents. And the fourth step is so important because from that fourth step come 5 other steps. That fourth column of my fourth step is what I'm going to admit to my sponsor in step 5, what I'm going to become willing to let go of in step 6, what I'm going to ask God to remove in step 7. They're going to be on my list on step 8, most of them, not all of them. And I'm going to make amends for. That column 1 is what I'm going to make amends for in column 4 in step 9. So I had a profound experience with step 4 because it was done out of the big book, and my sponsor just didn't throw me a booklet, a worksheet. He had a spiral notebook, a $1 notebook he bought at the dollar store, and a cheap pen, or I think it was a pencil, and we sharpened it with a razor knife because I was living in a recovery house. It wasn't pencil sharpeners. And he sat with me as I wrote this 4th step. I became painfully aware of my own existence and your life. And it's not a matter of morals or a matter of being right from wrong. I was raised with morals. I was raised with knowing from right from wrong. You know, but it was old. But when you're 5 years old and all you think about is you and having fun, you can't hear your parents. I couldn't hear my parents. You know, they raised me. You know, when you get to Uncle Hank's house, give him a hug, give him a handshake, kiss Aunt Gloria, you know, do all that stuff. Say thank you, say please. I just run in and grab stuff, and I'd run out in the yard or whatever. And I was just a little animal, you know. And as I got older, the girls in our neighborhood used to call us the gremlins. Like we would just show up at a party and just wreck it. Like we would eat the goldfish or dump the water out of the fish tank or steal the parents' car, some stupid stuff. And I look back and I thought I was, you know, I was cool, and what I was a public nuisance. You know, I wanted to be a gangster, and what I became was a public nuisance. And there's no gangsters in Alcoholics Anonymous. Some people think they are. But the gangsters pay child support. And the gangsters pay the IRS. And the gangsters do the next indicating right thing that our program suggests. And but who wants to do that? Unless I understand what it is I suffer from. If I understand that every amends that I make has to be attached to step 1. I can't be making my amends because I want a better life or I'm self-seeking and want my family back in my life. And every one of my amends I made, even to this day, because we talk about cleaning the records of our past up, I think this is important as records of our present. And every amends, even say, if I don't make this amends, it'll block me off from the power I find in these rooms that I had experience with. I will stay blocked off long enough, and I will drink again. And so step 1 is the linchpin for anything that I do in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the longer I'm sober, that road narrows of what I can get away with and what I can't get away with. There's stuff at 6 months sober I got away with, you know, arguing with the house manager, not paying rent when I had the money, because I wanted to buy a pair of jeans or something like that, because I came in here with nothing. When I say that, literally, the clothes I had weren't even mine when I got here. And I'm only here through the kindness of strangers who actually did the stuff outlined in this book. And in this book, every one of our amends is covered. From financial, relationships, family, people that we don't like. And every one of my amends are going to fall in one of 4 categories. Now, later, maybe, and never. So there's always a starting point. And I think there's a high ceiling in the rooms of AA where we get confused. We sit in this room right now because of steps 8 and 9. Right? If you think about the history of AA, Bill 12-step Dr. Bob on Mother's Day. Mother's Day is in May, but AA's anniversary is not until June. So what happened in those 30 days? Why wouldn't it be in May? Because Dr. Bob agreed with everything Bill said to him. Moral inventory, surrender, witnessing, confession of shortcomings. But he did not agree with restitution and making amends. And in the 4-week period, Dr. Bob drank again. And Bill gave up. Bill was getting ready to go back to New York, and he called his wife, or wrote a letter to his wife and said he was done with the drunk fixing business. He's just coming back. And then what happened was Bob showed back up. And on the same day that Bob drank, Bob started making his amends. And that's in our book. That's in many books, if we read AA history. Because at one time, I went from not wanting to do anything with this book to becoming a big book lawyer, and I would be the big book suicide bomber. I would duct tape the 8 big books across my chest, slide into Life or Death at the Northeast Club in Philly and tell everybody they're doing it wrong. Because I had such a profound experience with amends. In step 9 is where my sobriety or my recovery took off. How do you make amends for the way I treated Alcoholics Anonymous? I treated AA like a cesspool. I would come in, I wouldn't give $1. I'd be on my phone the whole meeting. But yet, if someone was on the phone when I was talking to them, they'd get butthurt. Right? So it's funny how I wouldn't put $1 in the basket. I'd drink the coffee, I'd eat the cake, I'd go to the free barbecues, and I would never give back. Wondering why I can't stay sober. And there's a big thing. That's one of the things I do when I work with a guy. How do you treat AA? Do you treat AA like a cesspool? Like it's a sober dating service? Like it's a pinochle club? And that experience comes when you understand the history of AA. When the old timer sat me down and said, Rick, it's great you know the big book. How about you learn the history? And you saw, because at one time there was 1 meeting a week. And what did they do the rest of the 6 nights of the week? They opened up the big book. It wasn't even a big book back then. They had no instructions. They just worked the steps, the 6 steps that they had. And all Bill Wilson did was add, the Oxford group steps had 6 steps. It started with step 3, and it went all the way to our 12. But all Bill Wilson did was add steps 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, and 10 to those six steps to get 12. So they actually did the steps, and they looked forward to going to that one meeting. Like everyone was excited to go to me. Now, in my home group, we got 17 meetings a week. Ain't nobody excited about going anywhere. You know what I mean? No, I was there last week. And I asked the guy, where are you in the steps? Did you write a 4-step? Nah, working on it. And usually when someone says they're working on it, that means they're not even starting it. Because it only takes, how long it takes to write a 4-step. People accusing me of rushing them through the steps, and I don't believe that to be true. My sponsor didn't rush me through the steps. He dictated steps 1, 2, and 3. However long I wrote a 4-step is how fast I'm going to go through the rest of the steps. Because once you write that 4-step, you do 5 immediately. 6 and 7 are non-working steps. Willing, prayer, and then the amends is how you work steps 6 and 7. The same way step 3 I work by writing a 4-step. It's a very simple deal. Once it's outlined in that fashion, it makes sense to me because there's only 3 relationships I can have. There's one with you guys, one with myself, and one with God. The first 3 steps straighten out the relationship with God. That He's the principal, I'm His agent. I don't even work for God, so to speak. I didn't go with that concept. My sponsor knew I didn't want to hear about God. He said, you'll find God for other people. How about if you turn your will and your life over to AA? How about you go make coffee for a while at the Stones? I could do that. And by doing that, and writing a 4-step, I started making a commitment to show up in the rooms of AA. So those 3 steps, the first 3 steps is about God. The powerlessness is the drinking and going to drink again. That's my first step. My first step isn't that I don't work my first step by not drinking. I work my first step by drinking. There's only 2 ways on how to work the first step. One is by drinking, proving I'm powerless. The other one is to sit with a sponsor and learn what it means to be an alcoholic for 2 reasons. 1, to know how bad I am, and 2, to carry the message to the next guy that still suffers. Steps 4 through 7 is relationship with myself. Like Eckhart Tolle says, self don't exist. You get to that spot. My sponsor said, your head has to get so small it can fit through that screen. I said, I can fit through the screen. He said, no, the hole in the actual screen. And that means no relationship with self that doesn't exist. When I exist is when I have problems. And steps 8, 9, relationship with you guys and other people. So when all 3 of those relationships are on point, on one and all 4 cylinders, it's the thing that comes in called joy, where I'm not looking for external stuff to make my insides feel better. And I never knew any of this stuff because I just didn't know I didn't know how to ask for help. And I didn't even ask for help this time. A member of AA came to me and says, dude, you're dying, and come on, let's get, you want some spiritual help? And my answer was no. I need $4,500, I need a lawyer, and a cheesesteak. And that was the help that I wanted. And I said, we're about the same size. You got any extra jeans? Because I had no clothes. And he says, nope, all that stuff will come. And I went there looking for a cheesesteak, a hot shower, and some food. And what I got was a big book of sponsor and a lot of oodles and noodles for the next 5 months. And it was the best experience I ever had because it got started on amends. It talks about a long period of reconstruction ahead. And they ain't kidding. See, when I work with a guy, and like myself, I want to make amends with my family first or my exes first, but let them know how I'm doing, and they can trust me, and I get back in the family, and we can all live happily ever after again. That didn't happen this time. My sponsor actually read the big book. He got to know my parents. He set up a 15-minute window for me to go make amends in that. And he was a smart kid. He was a kid, which pissed me off. He was younger than I was. And he asked me the wrong question. He said, Rick, are you hungry? Living in a recovery house, not working, 2 things. You're always cold and you're always hungry in the wintertime. I said, yeah, I'm hungry. He said, cool, I'll pick you up in a couple minutes. Go get something to eat. I said, all right. And he picked me up, and we went up Cottman Avenue in Philly. We passed McDonald's. We passed Four Seasons Diner. We made it right on the boulevard. We passed Applebee's. We passed Italian Bistro. We passed the Red Lobster. I said, we ain't going to eat, are we? He said, nope. And the further we went up the boulevard, the further I knew exactly where we were going. I said, dude, I can't make amends with my parents. He said, you sure can. And he said, you have 15 minutes where the cops are going to come. They had a restraining order against me. I went in that house, and I did what he told me to do. I walked in, and I never said I was sorry. I said I was wrong. And my father, who was reading the Inquirer, it was a Saturday paper. What did I guess? Wrong. Did you hear that, Gene? He said he was wrong. And he got up, and he said, I don't want to hear nothing you have to say. And he went upstairs. My mom sat there because I'm her youngest son, and I know she loved me. No matter what damage I did to her, I knew that she was hurting, and she knew I didn't mean it. But she was pissed. I said, Mom, I was wrong for being dishonest and selfish and self-seeking. I wasn't the best friend. I wasn't the best son that I could have been, and I embarrassed you. I turned my mom into a liar. My mom never lied in her life until my alcoholism took off to where it couldn't be controlled, until I was off and running. Every wedding, every funeral I missed, every christening I missed because of my drinking, where I was in jail or in rehab, she would say I was working. You know what that does to an 84-year-old woman who never lied in her life? Tear her heart out. I asked her if there was anything else I did to hurt her. And she said, yeah. This is the 2005 I did this. She said, yeah. In 1985, our relatives from Italy were over here to visit. They stayed in this house. You lived in this house. And you didn't come home for 5 days. You missed them all. Did you do that on purpose? I didn't even know they were there. They told me they were coming. If it ain't fun, I don't care. And she let me know about that. And I watched my mom get 20 years younger before my very eyes. My mom was very sick at the time. She fell off a treadmill, and she was 84 years old or so. She fell off a treadmill, and she got a blood infection, and she skinned her leg on the treadmill and her chin. And she was very sick, and she also had vertigo, Meniere's disease, which is a step deeper than vertigo. After that amends, my mom never had one more vertigo attack or one more illness. And you can't tell me there's not power behind amends? My actions made my parents physically sick. I can only imagine what it must be like. I don't have children. To watch their son slowly die and not be able to do anything about it. I watched my friends go through every day. I lost my job through my drinking. I went back here to make amends. I worked for the state of Pennsylvania. There's only two ways you get fired. I invented the third one. Stealing and fighting and drinking now. Because I almost killed the guys on my paint crew. And through a loophole, I got my job back, but I made amends. I went back there and I told them how much paint I stole. And they said, no shit. We knew it was you. You didn't do it by yourself. You don't give nobody else up. There's no ratting. I said, no. Tells us one foot. Now, if I go to that person who I stole the paint with, we did a side job. It turned out like crap because you stole the paint. It's karma for you, right? See, there's a beautiful thing here about it. The good news here is we rise above karma here. I don't want karma. I want the truth. So every time I make amends, that slate gets wiped clean. If I'm living on karma, the next 10 years of my life are going to be horrible. And the good news here, every amends I make, I start to rise a little bit above. What comes around goes around. I start to learn how to treat people. When I ask somebody, how did I hurt you? And they sit there for 15 minutes and they tell you how I hurt them. Oh my God, if you get 60 of those, there's going to be an internal shift. The problem with that is, usually after about 4 or 5 amends, people start feeling so good that now they're so busy to go back and finish them, and they're starting to sponsor guys. They got a home group, and then they got a girlfriend, and then they got the job, and they got the money, and they get their own apartment, and then that drawstring from that hoodie wraps around our necks, and we hang ourselves by the own blessings of our own recovery. And I watch it with the young guys I sponsor every day. They can't get back to the rooms of AA, drunk or sober. They're dead ends, which means the message stopped with them. Dead ends die. I don't want to be a dead end. You know, my brother and my sister, never seen them drunk, they never seen me sober. Story up until 2005. The only time we seen each other was at a function. I wasn't the brother that called my sister and asked her how she was doing. It wasn't like that. She was like that. I wasn't like that. So she gave up, and so every time any family function, they didn't know what to expect. They would hold their breath. And how I know that? Because we just had a family party in September, and we had all the coolers full. And I'm not opposed to drinking. I don't, because I don't drink doesn't mean my family can't. I got nephews, a shit ton of nephews and nieces, and their boyfriends, husbands, and girlfriends, and family. So we had 20 coolers lined up. I'm looking for a bottle of water, and with every cooler I open, you can hear like the hush. What's he pulling out of there? And they're still waiting for that shoe to drop. And it's my job is to keep doing what I'm doing. It ain't my job to convince them. If I keep doing what I'm doing in this book, The shoe will never drop. And there's some prayers that we got. There's 2 9-step prayers we've ever really talked about. And I sit down and I frankly analyze the past with my family from time to time. And around 2010 or so, I asked my mom, I made the mistake of asking my mom, Mom, how did I hurt you again? And she pulled me down on the couch and said, here, I'll tell you all about it. And she let me have it a second time. Because the first time was good. I could feel her angst still. And she got free in that second one. I said, Mom, would you, I was in a meeting, I heard this guy say he took his grandmom up to see her family in the mountains. So it came to me, Mom, you want to go up? My mom's from Wilkes-Barre. I said, Mom, you want to go up the mountains and see it? My mom has a childhood friend. They've been friendlies since they were 3 years old. My mom is now 90. They've been friends for 87 years, in contact every week on the phone. All right? I said, you want to go up and see Gene? He said, yeah. How am I going to get there? I said, I'll take you up. He said, you? I go, you? I said, come on, next Thursday I took off work. It was right before Memorial. It was nice out. I went up there. So she said, yeah. Drove up to the mountains. On the way up there, we stopped at my grandpa's grave so I could make amends to him. I didn't tell my mom I was doing that. My mom wanted to see her father. I wanted to make amends to my grandpa. I get there, and there's 5 cousins that I owe money to that are cutting the tombstone, around the tombstone. We whacking around the tombstone. I'm like, and they're from Hershey and Harrisburg. I'm like, I was at a wedding, and I bought $100 off each of them. So I go on a nice little run. I haven't seen them in years, and they know about it. I said, oh my God, this is really embarrassing. So I woke up very meek. I'm like, oh shit. I said, listen, I know. They're like, these guys, these are guys you need to pay back. They hold grudges. And I said, I'll be right back. My mom stayed there. I snuck out, got in the car. I went to the nearest gas station with an ATM. I withdrew $500. I paid each of my cousins back. That's why we were there that day. And my mom went to go visit her friend. And the day before we left, her friend called her and said she's diagnosed with terminal cancer, lung cancer. She has 3 weeks to live. So I sat in the basement of this lady's house in like a wine cellar like this for 5 hours, I guess, while they were laughing and giggling up there because they told me to leave. They were talking about their ex-boyfriends and sex stuff. I'm like, you're 90. If you don't like it, get downstairs. I'm like, I was like, Mom, you're married. And they were talking about the proms and shit. I'm like, whoa. And so I went around a walk up this beautiful, it was in Wilkes-Barre. I looked over this mountain, I sat and I prayed, and I watched my mom and this lady have one final visit, alive. And they were hugging. You couldn't pry them apart if I had a pry bar. And that's because of you guys. You guys taught me how to do that. That wasn't about me. I watched my mom heal. And I watched myself, because of the women in AA, become a son. You know, 2015, I was diagnosed with cancer. Coming out of that cancer, my dad had a stroke. And I'm at this meeting on Wednesday night, and my sister texts me. So now my family's starting to come together a little bit. I've been getting visits with my parents, and things have been going good. This is 10 years, 11 years sober now. My mom and dad weren't on the up, they weren't feeling me yet. And I go to the hospital, there's all these, one of them little conference rooms designed for like 3 people. There's like, the whole family's in there. There's like 20 of them, all screaming and howling at each other. And I walk in, and my mom goes, you couldn't hear a firecracker go off in there. My mom opened her mouth. Everyone got quiet. And she said, I think it's time for you to come home now. And everyone's like, yeah, you got to go home. You got to go home and take care of that. I'm like, me? I'm like, I'm single. It's not real good for the dating scene. Hey, you want to go back to my parents' house, change your diapers, and watch Netflix? So I asked my sponsor. He said, you know what you got to do. I asked a guy with 1 day sober. We know right from wrong here. He said, you know what you got to do. You got to go back to take care of your parents. He wanted my apartment. That's why. And I know how to do it. I don't want to do it. I did it selfishly. I did it against my own will. But I'll tell you what happened. There's a thing here that happens. It's called a change of heart. For 4 years, over every course of every day, my heart started to shift and it started to melt because my heart was an ice cube. I don't say that for dramatic reasons. I was cold. I had no capacity to love, and I was too selfish to serve. AA taught me to serve, but the capacity of love came from my parents. Every day, my heart would melt a little bit more. Me and my mom would ask me to put curls in the hair. Every Thursday night, I come back from the meeting, she'd be waiting up for me. I wish she wasn't. And she would say, it's curler night. All right, Mom. Friday, we painted nails. My nephew got married. She wanted me to pierce her ears. I said, Mom, I'm not piercing your ears. She said, listen. Just pull the ear down. I said, all right, Mom. I said, I don't know. I said, she said, there's holes there somewhere. She hasn't had her ears. She hasn't worn earrings because the holes closed up in probably 20 years. She said dementia. She didn't even know. She said, find a hole. I'm like, all right. There it is. I pulled her ear down. I stretched her ear. I just got this big, thick sewing needle. I sanitized it. I alcohol it. She didn't even feel it because the skin was like tissue paper. I put 4 of them in. She was pretty hip at my nephew's wedding. She had the 4 studs in each ear. And that's what we did. I got to fall in love with my mom all over again. And my dad became my best friend. This is through amends. I got 1,000 amends stories. I only got a couple minutes to share on that. My dad, someone told my dad I told my dad at an AA function. I forget what it was, a birthday party, anniversary. But my dad wanted to go. My mom was out with my sister. My dad wanted to go. This was 5 years ago. And she says, I take him. Someone told him I was a miracle. And he got that and put it in his back pocket. And my mom has since passed. She died in September. And my dad went in a nursing home on March 4th. COVID hit that nursing home March 5th. So the last time I saw my dad alive was March 4th. My dad just passed away. He died alone, with no family. That was not the plan. And they wouldn't let me take him out, which that place almost got blown up, if I'm going to be gut level honest. I knew he was dying. They wouldn't even let us see him, FaceTime or nothing. And it was painful. So March 4th, the next day he's going into COVID. I come home from work. I'm working outside all day. It was a pretty warm day, and I'm sweating my butt off, and I'm filthy dirty. I got to feed him, take a shower, and get to Delaware by 7 o'clock. I have a Delaware commitment, and it's now 4 o'clock. And my dad says, "Can you take me to CVS, ShopRite, the bank, and Walgreens?" I went. I didn't say no, but my face must have said something. He stands up on his walker and he goes, "Oh, you're some miracle, all right." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Someone told me you were a miracle." I said, "When? Is that AA thing you took me to?" "Yeah, some miracle. You can't take your father to the bank." He said, "Well, know what inconvenience is? Never missed one football game, hockey game, baseball game, any kind of sporting activity or club that you were in from the age of 3 to you were in high school, out of high school. I played high school sports. No matter how far that game was, me or your mom, or both of us were in every game. You know how much hockey equipment cost in 1982? Yeah. He said, the college money that you never went to college but spent all of it. You said you went to college, but you didn't. All that money we say, though, we'll talk about inconvenience. I'm sorry if I inconvenience you. All right, Daddy, say it like that. Get in the car. We'll go to ShopRite, we'll go to Walgreens, we'll go to CVS, and we'll go to Walmart. And so it takes a period of time for me and that cracked me open. And it broke our hearts not to be able to see my father again. He died in September. He died in August. Well, I got to be his son. My brother and my sister, because of this, will never know the experiences that I had with my parents. The years I disappeared, they're all gone. It's amazing how the monsters I thought they were no longer monsters. And that my childhood, how bad I thought it was, every day I stay sober longer, my childhood gets better. You say you can't change the past? I don't believe that. I think you can. Our perception of it changes. The amends are everything here. We do the first 8 steps to get to step 9. And if I can't do step 9, what message would I have to carry? How would I help a sponsee? It's where our recovery takes off. I've been in many rehabs carrying this message where I talk about the big book, and you got some dude that rolls his eyes, some lady that rolls her eyes. I had 20 years sober. I'm like, you're in here with a wristband on. What happened? Well, I know what to do when I get out of here. I make meetings. No, don't drink. I'm like, didn't you do that before? It didn't work. I said, where were you with amends? No. I made my amends. I said, tell me about them. Because if you can't tell, somebody asks you about your amends and you can't tell them, you never made them. I remember every one of my amends and what they said back to me. Because that's what I'm making amends for, my character defects. That's how I start to change little by slowly, not all at once. And my heart cracked open through that process. Every ex-girlfriend I went to, they told me I made amends to an ex-girlfriend. I dated her briefly in 1987. She friend requested me on Facebook, sent me a nice message, glad you're doing good. She was no longer mad at me. I owed her an amends. I didn't show up for the things I said I was going to do with her. And we met at a coffee shop on Princeton Avenue in Philly. And I thought we were just going to have a little social thing. In the interim, she broke down and she says, I'm glad you're doing good, Rick, but if you don't ever treat a woman the way you treated me. We dated like a month. She said, I really liked you. You told me you liked me, and you didn't. You lied to me, and you used me. And she was in tears. So when you get that feedback, how can I make this right? That's where the healing starts to begin for both parties. The amends are not just about the other person. It says in here, quite frankly, it's more beneficial to us to go to a person we don't like. It says it's beneficial to us too. Until I learn. That's where rubber hits the road. If I don't make my amends, because that's why step 11 comes after step 9. There's a thing where there's one time where Jesus gets mad. I'm not Bible or churchy, I'm not trying to go there, but as a parable, he gets mad in the temple, turns the table over. And why he got mad is because people were offering incense, children, gold, money, cattle to gods. And he's saying, go home and make peace with your brother if your offerings are to be accepted. And the parable is our offerings are our prayers. That's why we have to make amends with each other first. And then my prayer life had different footing after I made my amends. After every amends I make today, every 10 step I do, I can feel more power behind my amend, more power behind my prayers. I don't know how it works. Maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know, but that's what I feel. And this is an experience here. And making the amends might not be a pleasant experience, but it's still an experience. And we do things here that are uncomfortable in order to get comfortable for the rest of our lives. So if I don't open up in step 5 with our sponsor, make my amends to you guys, I'm never going to be able to do steps 10 and 11. And if I can't do those steps, and if I don't make my amends, wait till I have the sponsor, I'm never going to be here for very long. And put in that way, it makes a lot of sense to me why step 9 is our recovery. We do our first 8 steps to get to 9, then it's done. Step 10 is steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 12 in one step. Step 11 is prayer. Step 12 is carrying the message. I'll repeat, sitting down. This is not carrying the message. I don't believe that. Carrying the message is one-on-one. One-on-one. That's when the experience happens. Peace, guys. Thanks for letting me share.
Okay, we're going to open the meeting sharing. Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes, and please speak up. Also remove